Whatcha Know Joe?
I don't know nothing.
Whatcha Know Joe?
Tell me something.
Welcome to the Whatcha Know Joe podcast. You know, for all you young filmmakers who scheme and dream, how are you going to make a movie? There are three components. The hardest is the most important is raising the money. Ironically, the easiest part of that three-pronged monster is making the movie. The movie is actually the easiest. You don't think so as a film student because you struggle to do it. But now you found the money, you made the movie, and now comes the single most important part. How are you going to sell it? How are you going to market it? You just can't turn it over to a distribution company. They'll say, thanks, don't let the door hit you. And that's where this next gentleman comes into the picture. The incredibly dynamic, the amazingly talented, and the all-important to your project, Jimmy Wachtel. Jimmy, welcome, first of all.
Thank you.
And because I don't think I just did a great job, why don't you describe what you do?
I started doing record covers, photographing rock and rollers. I was a photographer, then was asked to be an art director and design an album cover. Became my career. At some point in my career, like in the 80s, early 80s, business went down the tubes and I thought I'd better find something else to do. So naturally, I gravitated to movie advertising. It's another image, although it's vertical as opposed to square. So I got into the movie one-sheet designing business.
When you say you got into, that fascinates me because I remember what I went through trying to get into the film business.
Yeah, I went into the same thing.
How do you decide to go into the music business and just go into the music business?
Yeah, the music business was relatively easy. I had it in with a band at the time. And I did an album cover for them, which was a dreadful piece of dreck because I had no idea what I was doing. I never went to art school. I had no experience, so I just kind of did something, and it was just a big bomb. And from there, I just kept getting better. You know, eventually, it took me a while at my clients' expenses. I mean, a lot of what I did should have been much better, but somehow I kept going. It was the 70s and rock and rollers. It was easier. It wasn't as exact. There were no computers. You could be a little imperfect. I got pretty much as far as I could go doing album covers. My fees went, when I started, from $500, which included everything, including photography. I finally got it up to about $10,000. And I was working with, bigger stars, Bruce Springsteen and Crosby, Stills and Nash. And
how do you get to Bruce Springsteen and all these incredible?
For me, it's always been accidental. When I was in New York, before I came out here, I was studying to be a TV director. I was taking a master's degree. I was directing educational, instructional TV. I came out to California as a visitor in 1968. My brother's rock and roll band came out weeks before me, and their management put them up in a lovely little house with a swimming pool in Benedict Canyon. I came from Jackson Heights. I lived in Brooklyn in an apartment. I've never lived in a house. So I came out here and I thought, this is like nirvana. This is heaven. So I immediately decided to quit my career in TV and I'm going to be a photographer. So I bought a camera. I came out to Los Angeles because the band that brought my brother's band out was popular. It was a teenage band. I started shooting them. And one of them said, do you want to do our album cover? There's a story. So I said, sure, not knowing what the hell I was doing. Sure, because I understood one thing about freelancing, which inherently somewhere in my gene pool was you never say no. You always say yes. So I became an album cover designer as well as photographer. And I did 50 album covers, maybe more. And anyhow, but it's all been stumbling forward. From that, I just started taking my portfolio of albums around to all the movie studios, put on a shirt and tie in the day, looked like a movie executive, And everybody said, well, we'll send you to the music department. You don't know how to do a one sheet. And I tried to explain that it's just vertical, it's as opposed to square. And finally, I went to 20th Century Fox. A guy named Hal Heisler was the advertising director, I guess, the marketing director. And he had been in the music business and he knew who I was from there. So he gave me a shot and said, I'm not going to pay you what people get paid, because people were making a fortune at that time.
Yeah.
So he paid me 3 times what I'd been making on album covers, what it
Wow.
took 10 years to make. So I started doing movie posters and I was good at it. I did Eating Raoul was the first one I did, which was underground, big hit, great little poster. So they gave me Star Wars, and they gave me, Class Reunion, which was a John Hughes movie. And so I started building up a portfolio of movie posters, and then once you have a little notoriety, the other studios will then talk to you.
It made me laugh because I know from the days of producing episodic, when I would try to find writers, agents would set in the bid sheets, and they would always he'll do it for $3,000 an episode. He'll do it for $17,000. Didn't matter whether the writer was good or couldn't spell.
Right.
They wanted the writer that cost the most, because if he cost or she cost the most, got to be good.
Yeah.
Makes me laugh when you say you went from 500 to 10,000.
Yeah.
You got to be the best. Who else? If you'd have gone and asked for 1,000, you'd probably still be looking for a job.
Well, there's an agency in England who did the best album covers called Hypnosis, and they were worked with major stars like McCartney and Pink Floyd, and they were getting 30,000, 40,000. So, but I did. I was the difference is that I was a one-man operation. At times I had an assistant, but that was it. I did everything. Sometimes photography, design, meetings. I didn't write, there wasn't copy, but I designed the logo, and did the production. I did everything. These guys at agencies, they had a staff. I never had a staff of one.
You had to encapsulate and create the universe for the project, whether it was an album or a movie. I mean, you really were the tip of the spear in many ways.
Well, I was also a bit of an anomaly, because I was hired by the artists or the producers or the managers. I was there was maybe 1 or 2 record companies that ever hired my entire career. And one of them was at the end when I had stopped doing album covers. I was doing movie posters, but Sony wanted me to work on Motorhead. So, which I did, which was a fun but disastrous creative experience.
When you did my book cover, which I liked a lot, you generated it on the computer, yes?
Yeah.
But the earlier days, you would just take a picture and
Yeah, it was illustration or photography or a combination of both. And I mean, it was a big day for me when I've got a fax machine that could also make a print 10% larger, 10% smaller on thermal paper. Prior to that, you had a thing called a Lucy, which was like a camera where you trace your image. So it was a picture of you. I'd have to trace it. And then it was a slide projector against, it was all crude stuff. When you got a laser copier, the first time I went crazy. That was phenomenal.
If you'll allow me, I know I told you this story, and I'm going to take away some of your time here, but bear with me. When I did Knots Landing, I think I told you this story. When I did Knots Landing, in the 3rd year, we had a wrap party on Ventura Boulevard. We bought out a restaurant. And at that time, one of our leading ladies, Kim Langford, was dating Warren Zevon.
Exactly.
So we have this wrap party, and we're supposed to be out of there at midnight. And about 10 to midnight, Warren shows up with his band. And the party went on till 6 in the morning. We had to buy out that restaurant all night. The bosses were furious at me. I'll show you how smart I am, is that I didn't make the nexus that your brother, Jimmy Wachtel, was actually your brother.
Well, thanks to my brother that launched my career, because the first band was his management that brought him out here. And then through him, his first gig was with the Everly Brothers. The
Ah,
band director who hired him was Warren Zevon.
oh, wow.
Now, through Warren Zevon, I met Jackson Brown. And through Jackson
Wow.
Brown, I met Graham Nash. And it's like,
Yeah. You had to be in Hollywood. When it's funny, my story follows yours in a lot. I came out, fell in love. First the girl I was dating, got off the plane. She took me up into Laurel Canyon, and that was it for me. I wasn't going home.
exactly.
Yeah. It was magical. Those days were magical.
Yeah.
So, okay. Tell us about your book. I think because the book really going to be an eye opener because it encapsulates a lifetime of tremendous creativity. Yeah.
That's the cover. The title is on the spine, which is Stumbling Forward, a 12 by 12 rock and roll life. 12 by 12 being album cover size. So it's basically, aside from illustrating my album covers that I did from the beginning of the 70s on, it's a story of how I wound up out here and how I stumbled into this career without having any art training whatsoever or any business training. I just kind of wandered into it, kept going forward from one to the next.
See, I think that's a great tale for kids graduating who are going to go, who think some of them are connected, some of them aren't. I was not connected. I did more than stumble forward. I tripped and fell forward. I rolled over forward. But you got to believe in yourself.
Yeah.
Hold on a second. I'm getting a call. If it's a job, I'll see you. Hello. They hung up. Must be my agent. So what's next for Jimmy Wachtel? You still have a lot of creative energy.
Well, I'm trying to sell this book, getting publishing for the book, which is critical.
Mm.
I have an agent in New York who's attempting to do that. In the meantime, I had always worked for hire. I was a gun for hire, and I would only work when there was a job. And then because I'd been forced into retirement, it seems, at this age, I started taking some of my old photography and putting it into the computer and making what I'm going to call art. So that's what I've been doing. And I've been taking some public domain photography and also the same process. I found a photo of, looked like New York in the turn of the century with carriages still, but it was lit really well. It was a black and white photo, and I scanned it in and I made it into what looked like an impressionist painting. And I thought, well, that's interesting, So I've done a lot of that. I've got I've been making prints on Epson prints, and I started a business called Jimmy Wachtel Art. I have a shopping site. I have about 70 images.
Wow.
The most spectacular of them are flowers for some reason. I've always liked flowers, but I've got an affinity with making flower art. And there's people, I've got like some of the stuff I've shot, Jackson Brown, Bob Dylan, Warren Zevon, Joe Walsh. And I've taken the photo and I've augmented, reworked it, enhanced it in the computer to make it more of a unique art piece. So that's what I'm doing.
Are there gallery showings?
I'd like to, but I'm just starting. We've got that. I do have my store site up, which is just jimmywachtelart.com. We'll take you to the shop. And hopefully I'm going to start selling some prints, and then I can afford maybe to get a gallery show, because these things, the flower prints look fabulous when they're big. They're beautiful. So that's what I'm doing now. And hopefully the book will happen, and then I'll be working on promoting the book.
Excellent. Maybe you can hire a guy like Jimmy Wachtel to promote it and show it. And,
social media, which I'm not very big at, as you know, but I have somebody who's going to help me with that. So.
Yeah, I know. I'm computer challenged. I feel your pain, man. Will AI impact you positively or negatively? I mean, pictures show up that you had nothing to do with.
It hasn't impacted me. I'm not using AI. I've tried experiment a little bit. What I'm doing is not AI, but I wish I knew some more about it, because I think it's just an art tool as far as I'm concerned, just like the computer was.
Uh-huh.
The computer came out, everybody freaked out. let's see here, the early 80s, this guy from Australia named Tony Redhead opened a shop called Electric Paint. And he had this paint box. It was an electric paint box that I think was made in Israel. They were $1 million. It was a giant computer. And on that, you could do everything you can do on a Mac now. The Macs came out and put him out of business, but it was like, I had never seen anything like it. It was like an art director's dream because you could just do it instantly. It's like what I can do now on a computer. Anyhow, that kind of, everybody freaked out like that's going to change the business, but it didn't change. It just became another tool.
That's interesting.
It's still people behind it thinking and I had dreams and concepts and ideas. The AI can't do that. And if it does, there's no soul.
Well, that's just going to say what my experience is. It doesn't have any emotion.
Yeah, I think the emotion, it's added by the person using it,
Well, I get sent chat DP, whatever that is,
right.
Scripts. And it says exterior cafe, interior cafe, but I don't have I can't picture the cafe. There's no gritty, sawdust on the floor and gritty light through the window. There's none of that. It's just words on paper.
Yeah. When I was doing books, like I did your book, AI came out and I saw a book cover that AI did. And I was like, Jesus, it looks like a book cover. It was perfect. Was it perfect for you? The Joe Walsh book, what it meant, I doubt it, but it looked like a book cover. So my feeling is that, the person who uses AI, it's like on movies, special effects, if they're used correctly or artistically, then it adds to the story. Otherwise, it's,
right.
Just computer. It doesn't mean shit.
Yeah. No, I hear you. I'm with you. Tell me about your agent, because my eternal struggle has been, I've had 1 million agents. When I get work, it's because somebody knows of me, right? I'm trying to get my Summertime trilogy, a fiction trilogy. And the bane of my existence is finding a literary agent who, and I thought my books, because I had 3 books. You did the last one, but I've had 3. I thought, that'll give me credibility. It gave me young guts.
Well, let me just say, I've never had an agent until presently.
Right.
Unfortunately, so far, no hits. We've got some passes, but no hits.
There's a thing, you're probably way ahead of me on this. Family album, where you take all your child's and grandchildren's picture and you make a book, like a coffee table book. With the amount of work you've done, you could do your own book, sell it, put it out there.
That's what this is.
That's what that is. Okay.
As an example, I made a couple of books, expensive, lots of color.
Yeah.
That's a possibility. That particular book company does sell people's books. A friend of mine who's a photographer, they do lots of people's books, which is the problem. 1,300 authors. So going into that mix, my feeling is, I prefer not to self-publish. I want a publisher. I want somebody to get behind the book.
Yeah, so, I know.
So we'll see if it all fails. Maybe I'll be forced to do that. I don't know.
Well, I wouldn't consider that failure. I would consider that working in your own best interests, because you'll work harder for you. To be somebody else's. It's like, we got a deal at the studio. We're the 12th movie they're going to do. Not so much, if they ever make the 12th movie or if they have any money left to promote it. No one will work harder for you than you.
Well, you're going to have to do that anyway now. In this day, you have to do all the social media.
Right.
Got to hustle it, And then again, when you make like a star, like a Brad Pitt movie, he's got to go out there and get in front of all the cameras and work it as well,
Yeah.
There's no getting away from it.
Yeah.
As much as we'd like.
Yeah. Well, yeah, it always sounds so much easier. I'll be by the pool sipping a Mai Tai and my agent will call and tell me about this fabulous job. The only thing I ever get was a bad Mai Tai. Listen, you're a doll to do this. Yeah. I hope that this will be the path to your door and your book. I think your book is going to make some waves and some noise, and I wish it for you.
Good. Thank you, Joe.
And, If by some miracle I get my fiction trilogy published, we'll talk.
I'll be here.
All right, Jimmy. Thank you so much for doing this.
Joe, always. It's so nice to actually see your face in person, too. I was looking at the back of a book cover. So thanks for
man. Thank you.
You're welcome. Thanks.